Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. It's been a minute since I've made a video, but I have been reading a ton this year. I recently hit my reading goal. It was only 30 books this year. I decided to put it a little lower because I knew I was going to be busy, but I hit it. I hope you've all been doing well. I've missed making videos, but yeah, it's nice to be recording after a long time. And thank you for watching. So the first question of the mid-year freakout tag is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2021? I'm gonna take a look at my story graph one last time before I lock in this answer. I'm gonna have to give it to Lavinia by Ursula K. Le Guin. Le Guin is obviously an author who I want to read much more of, but what I have read of Le Guin has just been unparalleled. I think she has such a singularly simple and straightforward, but also just elegant voice and very authoritative voice as an author. Lavinia particularly spoke to me. It's told in the first person, which I've found after finishing Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderling series. I think first person is just one of my favorite forms of narrative. I didn't realize that because so much of fantasy is written in the third person limited. I didn't realize just how beautiful first person can be in the right hands. If you are familiar with the Aeneid, you probably have seen Lavinia's name. I think she has no speaking lines in the Aeneid. I personally was not familiar with the Aeneid at all before I read this, and I still found it to be a fantastic book. The next question is the best sequel I've read so far in 2021, and this is really difficult. I think I'm gonna have to give it to two books. The first is Midnight Tides by Steven Erikson. Midnight Tides especially, I just loved the story that Erikson tells in this of brotherhood, of family, of just pain and suffering. It's hard to talk about it because it is the fifth book in a series, and you know, there's a lot of spoilers. It takes place before all of the previous books in the series, and I can understand a lot of people being frustrated with that, and I think to a certain extent, it is a little confusing at first. It has some of the best characters in the series so far. Trull is one of my favorite characters I've ever read. Letheros in general is just a fantastic city, and I loved reading about it. Erikson starts to explore a lot of sort of political issues in Midnight Tides that I find super interesting, and the only reason that it's not the best, I would say, is because I also read Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I think that Obelisk Gate is a fantastic sequel because it sort of develops this conflict between two characters who are never on the same page together, and I think the way that N.K. Jemisin does that is just masterful and beautiful. I did finish Stone Sky recently, and I didn't like Stone Sky quite as much, but I still think overall the Broken Earth trilogy has ended up definitely in my top 10 fantasy series of all time. A new release I haven't read yet but want to is the latest Catherine Addison book. I'm a big Catherine Addison fan. I loved A Witness for the Dead, and The Goblin Emperor is one of my favorite books. I'm just super excited to read her latest book. All right, biggest disappointment. So I read the entire Sun Eater series this year, as well as the latest release, Kingdoms of Death. And I think that Kingdoms of Death felt very flat for me, which is a shame because the previous book in the series, Demon in White, had been my favorite. I think Kingdoms of Death highlighted a lot of the problems I had had with the series and sort of brought them to a head. One of the biggest issues I had had with Sun Eater is that Hadrian is kind of like the only interesting character. There are some characters that are somewhat interesting, but really Hadrian bears the brunt of, you know, making those books good. Kingdoms of Death leans a lot on Hadrian's relationships with these secondary characters, and because I had no investment in those characters, this book just didn't work. Also thematically, I feel like we got into really cringe area where I was just like, I don't agree with what the author is trying to say, and the way he's trying to say it is not particularly subtle. There were a lot of attempts at good things that could have been done well, but I just don't think were executed properly. It just fell flat for me. I will be reading the rest of the series. I think Hadrian is still a fantastic character, and Rockio has a lot of interesting ideas. His books tend to be very hit or miss for me because like Demon in White was fantastic. We'll see where that series goes. So my biggest surprise this year was a book called Gold Diggers by Sanjana Satyan. I found it just randomly one night. I was scrolling through the Libby app looking for something short to read. It's a sort of coming of age story about a South Asian teenager living in Georgia. There were just so many aspects of this book that I saw myself in a very, very specific way that I've never really been able to see myself in a book before. And usually I kind of avoid books about my own identity because it just is uncomfortable in a way that I don't really need to be reminded about. Like I already know what it's like to be in my skin living in this country. Like I already know what it's like and I don't need to be reminded about it. But actually reading this book was really cathartic in a lot of ways. Just a very serendipitous find. A new favorite author of mine is Max Gladstone. I read the first 2 books in the Craft sequence, 3 Parts Dead and 2 Serpents Rising. 3 Parts Dead has one of the best settings I've ever read in my entire life. Like the urban fantasy scene just needs more of Max Gladstone in my opinion. It's basically about the city whose patron god has died, and these 2 investigators are sort of hired to figure out what happened to this god and why he died, what happened, what went wrong. And it's just one of the most clever, unique, and imaginative stories I've read in a while. Just off the strength of the first book, Max Gladstone is definitely a new favorite author of mine. My newest favorite character, probably Sasha from Vita Nostra. Vita Nostra is such a weird, strange book that refuses to tell you what's going on at any point, and you're just reading it. A lot of dark academia revels in the sort of beauty of academic institutions, and Vita Nostra just does not do that at all. It's just disgusting dorm rooms, terrible, banal school imagery of like pencils and like paper, contrasted with this very sort of eldritch horror vibe going on. And I think Sasha starts out as this very bland character, and then this quality of hers starts to develop over the book where you realize that she's actually this very sort of steely, just determined woman. And I found that really compelling. Go read Vita Nostra if you are at all interested in dark academia. A book that made me cry, I don't think I cried outright this year at any book, but a book that made me really sad was Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. I think that Lee did a fantastic job wrapping up the series, and there were definitely some tearjerker moments in Jade Legacy that I think were very earned. She just did a great job setting up a lot of moments that paid off super well. So kudos to Fonda Lee for pulling off the ending to a trilogy. I think that's really hard to do. Greenbone just got better with each book, and Jade Legacy was in a lot of ways a kind of unexpected ending. I think as a writer she's only going to get better, so if this was her first trilogy, I am very, very excited to see what she does next. A book that made me happy this year, I read The Hobbit. I reread The Hobbit. I had read The Hobbit like way back when in elementary school. Tolkien has this thing where he will just go on tangents about like the animals. So in The Hobbit, there's like a part where like a pony gets lost, and he just like takes like a whole paragraph to be like, but don't worry, the pony got home safely, and he was like just vibing. I love Tolkien's sort of affection and love for his characters. You know, not a hot take, but The Hobbit is just a fantastic book, and those books make me very, very happy. The most beautiful book I bought this year, I got the Greenbone saga set, and these are just absolutely gorgeous. This is the Jade Legacy. I have the full set. You can kind of see them. I don't feel like getting them out, but yeah, just gorgeous, gorgeous book. It's got like really beautiful edges. The second most beautiful book I bought this year is probably this graphic novel. It takes place in Mumbai. I just found it at the comic book store. I went with my best friend for comic book day, found this book, and I had to buy it. My only goal for myself for the rest of this year is to finish Malazan. That's it. I've already hit my reading goal, and all I want to do for the rest of the year is finish Malazan, and after that I'll just read whatever I want. Had a lot of fun filming this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I will catch you next time, whenever that is, in a couple months or maybe next week. Who knows? But thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, and let me know in the comments what you've been reading, and thank you for watching. Take care.